The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Business Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericabusiness.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
The following radio program is for informational purposes only and is neither specific nor tailored financial advice to any individual. It is not intended as an offer or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any financial instrument. Always do your own due diligence and consult a financial advisor before making any investments. Investing involves risk, which can result in the loss of any or all principal. Peter Weitz is a registered investment advisor with Fusion Analytics Investment Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, as well as a registered rep with Fusion Analytics Securities, LLC, a FINRA-registered broker-dealer and SIPC member. All views expressed in this program are those of the host or guests and do not reflect the opinions of Fusion Analytics Investment Partners nor its affiliates. Your investments. How secure are you that they are secure? Do you want to know more about investing, retirement, and moving to the next level in business? Welcome to In Black and Weitz, featuring host Peter Weitz. Our program will answer all of the questions about your future and so much more. It's all about smart business and smarter investing. Now, here is your host, Peter Weitz.
Hi, welcome back to the program. I'm your radio host, Peter Weitz. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio program. Thanks for listening. I'm joined today by a business coach, certified business coach, and motivational speaker. Her name is Ruth Schwartz. And Ruth, as I mentioned, is a professionally certified business coach and speaker and author and facilitator of a variety of assessments. And she owns her own company called High Performance Advocates, which is a management development company. And she's an enthusiast for working with successful entrepreneurs, such as your radio host, and business leaders who are tired of task and employee management and ready to create change. And one of the things we were going to spend a lot of time talking about today is how, seeing that the economy is making this what seems to be a robust improvement from its doldrums in 2008 and 9, and companies are now expanding and growing, we're going to talk about hiring practices that we're finding to be common now in the industry, and what employers are doing differently than what they may have done in the past with regards to hiring and hiring practices for new people. So before I begin, Ruth, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Peter.
And so just give me an overview of a little bit about you and how you came up with this solution, as you will, of hiring. Where you identified that there was some problem and a potential need, and how you helped to solve it.
All right. Well, let me tell you a little bit of my story. Picture this. Martin was 18 years old, spiky hair, Converse sneakers, big X's on the back of his hands, and he was my first employee. I thought he was perfect, right? So it was 1984. I was a punk rocker in San Francisco. I was producing a radio program in a magazine called Maximum Rock and Roll. Martin had just moved to volunteer on our magazine. I was in my second year of a distribution company that I had started, and I needed somebody. So what would be more perfect than this guy, right? So I used my gut instincts. I like this guy. I'm going to hire him. It wasn't but 2 weeks later that he came to me and he said, well, I can't work for you because I find this work morally objectionable. Now, in that moment, I was devastated. For one thing, he had called me morally objectionable. He was sending out promotional mailings, right? So I didn't understand that even for a second. But that feeling churning in my stomach was the first time I felt this doubting, right, of, I must be really bad at this. I really thought, this was the right thing to do. Well, that distribution company grew over the next 20 years to become a $10 million distribution company. And I hired and fired dozens and dozens of people, and I never really lost that feeling of devastation every time somebody would leave. I mean, sure, I fired people, but it was hard. It was emotionally draining every time it happened, and that's how I learned how expensive it is and how emotionally expensive it is as well. I left the music business in 2005. It was crashing and burning. I thought, okay, I'm going to learn something else, and I have a lot of business expertise. I'm going to share it. Started coaching other businesses. And one of the first things that I noticed and recognized is that there's a universal hatred for the process of hiring. And people just hate doing it. They hate doing it because they never get a predictable result. And I mean, I don't know, Peter, have you ever hired anybody? Do you love it?
Well, yeah, I mean, no, the problem, I think, is really, all you're really looking at is a piece of paper. And you sit down with someone for an hour, and you literally are making a decision on your business based upon, essentially just an interpretation. And
in addition to that, I'm going to unpack that a little bit for you in a second, but in addition to that, we all feel that either we're really terrible at it, like I did, like, oh my gosh, I must be like horrible at judging who's the right employee. Or I've met a lot of business owners, probably 50-50 split here, who think all the people they employ are complete idiots. And it was through that process of watching other people that I, sort of saw that conundrum. Like, where on the conundrum, it's a big gray bar. I mean, it's not all, one way or the other, but somewhere in there we kind of blend this idea of either I'm an idiot or they're an idiot. And I don't think either one of those things is true. I really don't. I don't think that all of us, whether we're hired or hiring, are idiots. I think it's the system.
Yeah, and I kind of think that as I think about this subject, I almost go back to when you applied to college, and you had to be in the yearbook, and you had to play a sport, and you had to have all these extracurricular activities and good board scores and good grades, and go to the prom and all this stuff, and then you would be admitted to college. But yet that you would get into one school versus another based upon that list of criteria, but that would not necessarily equate to you being a good student and at that school. And I think about it today, the question begs for me is, how important is it really to have a college degree versus not? Are you getting a better qualified person?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm the expert on that particular subject, because certainly there's a lot of talk now about what are kids learning in school. How are people being prepared? But here's where my angle on all of this is, and this is my observation. We hire for what we perceive are people's skills, but we fire them for their behavior. Right? So your ability to go into that college and be successful and be a good student is more about your behavior style than it is about your actual football skills or whatever it was that they thought was very good about you and accepted you for.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And it goes back to what we spoke about a minute ago, is that I guess you don't really have the opportunity to see what someone's behaviors are like in an interview or on a resume.
Exactly. So there's this honeymoon period, right? And I would say it's probably 1 to 6 months when somebody comes into a new job, and they're adjusting their behavior during that point. Oh, yeah, everything I said in that interview, yeah, I can do all that stuff. And they're adjusting themselves, but we wear down. If there's too much adjusting of our behavior, we will wear down. And then that's when we see what people are really like. And that's why people don't last.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, and it's funny, too, because HRE Online, the Human Resources magazine, actually showed a study today, as a matter of fact, that said that chief investment officers looking for techies in this survey, 71% said that they would much rather have experience over education. And so they're more interested in where their people came from, what they've learned along the way, and that's really what they're interviewing about, as opposed to, sort of that knowledge.
Well, I would take it one step further. I would say hire for behavior.
Yeah, well, and, we'll talk about that. I mean, how do you find that chemistry is the question. I mean, how do you know really, if I'm in an interview, I'm going to fake it until I get hired, and I'm going to try to tell you everything that you want to hear so that I can get the job. But how do you really dig down to find out what someone's behavior is like?
Well, I created a new system I call the fail-proof hiring system. I looked at all the best practices. I tried to answer exactly those questions. So let me give you a little bit of my thought process. I think that the number one thing that we have to do, the most important thing that we have to do, is we have to profile the behavior of the job before we ever think about who's going to fill it. If we don't know what problem we're solving, we'll never get the right person in it. Yeah, so I'm speaking to a lot of employers, and maybe you know somebody like this who say, all I need is a rock star who can do everything. Well, every time I hear that, it's like, well, guess what? Let's get out of rock star mode and put good people in the right jobs, and then everybody's a rock star. Right? So we get away from this, I can do everything. If we can ask that simple question, right? All right, so can I draw you a little metaphor here for a second? Are you a baseball fan?
I am.
Okay, good. So then you can help me with this. This is actually the process. So, draw your diamond out and put your players on the field, and then you're managing this baseball team. You've got to hire a catcher and a pitcher and some basemen and some outfielders, and you've got to get this team working, right?
Correct.
So here's the right question. Let's start with a catcher. Well, what are some of the skills that a catcher needs?
Catcher needs to be able to throw the ball hard to throw the runners out. The catcher needs to be able to help select the pitches for the pitcher. But I guess if I were to think about it, I think the catcher is probably the most important person on the team because they're out looking at the entire field and they see exactly how everything's going to unfold. I almost think they're the leader of the game. So
here you go. On the left side, you've got these skills, right, that can be, you can do stats on, right? How many outs do they have? How many saves do they have? All that kind of stuff, right? When we look at the other side of behavior, we're looking at a guy who's a leader. He's a strategist, right? And honestly, from where I am, not probably being the best person to give you a sports metaphor, but from where I sit, he is a guy that's in every play who has nerves of steel, right? He puts on a mask and he stands in front of a ball going 90 miles an hour. That's what I see when I see a catcher. All right, now let's do the same thing. What are the skills that right field needs?
Yeah, and actually, Ruth, I think that's a great place to take a break, and because I'm actually going to need to think about this during the break.
Good.
You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio program on Voice America Business. We'll be back in just a minute.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
Climbing Mount Everest is an amazing feat, and many have died trying to do so. However, more people have died descending Mount Everest than in reaching the summit. Part of the problem may be that people are so focused on reaching their objective that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will do or should be prepared for afterward. Similarly, people are so focused on saving for retirement and reaching retirement that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will encounter once they have actually retired. With 1 out of every 4 65-year-olds today living past the age of 90, you may be retired longer than you are actually working. Have you devised a plan, process, and discipline to ensure that you will not run out of money? If you are not sure what to do, then simply contact Peter Weitz and his retirement team at Fusion Analytics. We help manage human emotions using 3 proprietary investment techniques. Our job is to evaluate the forces that the typical investor can't see so that wealth is preserved and not lost. Find out more at inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. In Black and Weitz. We win by not losing.
ERISA 408B2, fiduciary standards, safe harbor, fidelity bonds, record keepers, discrimination testing. I am so confused.
Does your 401k plan have more questions than answers? Peter Weitz and his team of 401k experts have a solution. Their on-site service model distinguishes them from other service providers, and they are specialists in 401k costs, regulations, and compliance. If your 401k plan has more questions than answers, then contact Peter at 877-945-2888 or email him at peter@inblackandweitz.com. What are your business goals? How do you plan to accomplish them? Your strategy for business growth matters, and the experienced corporate lawyers at Retzel will collaborate with you to develop and execute a customized plan designed to unlock value at your enterprise. Whether the growth you seek is domestic or international, organic or driven by acquisitions, our attorneys are here to propose innovative solutions and assist you every step of the way. For more information, visit us at www.ralaw.com. When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network. You are listening to In Black and Weitz. To reach Peter Weitz or his guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to peter@inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hi, thanks. Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Peter Weitz. We are joined today by Ruth Schwartz, who is a professionally certified business coach, and she's discussing her model on how to hire the right people. And prior to the break, she was giving us a metaphor and an analogy using baseball as to how we would go about selecting the best baseball player. And she posed to me what my interpretation of a right fielder is. And during the break, I had to think about it because I just really wasn't that. But to me, the right fielder is the most essential person, I think, for a left-handed batter. But I guess that's the best I could come up with. So I'm hoping you can help me with that. All
right. Well, again, from my non-sport angle here, when I watch a game, I see the guy in the right field. I see his behavior is very patient. He doesn't need to be in the middle of the action. He doesn't need to be a strategist. He's happy watching and waiting for his turn. And when it comes, he is the man of the hour, right? Or the man of the minute, as it turns out to be.
Right.
And his skills are he can throw the ball a really long way, really fast, et cetera. He's got to run. Those are the skills. But the behavior is different. So to me, if anybody listening here today takes anything away from it, it's this one question, which is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? So on this analogy, what does the team need from the catcher? What does the team need from the right fielder? They're different things.
And that's an interesting point. So now let's dig down into that a little deeper. So exactly how do we go about, if I'm gonna evaluate my company and I've decided that my time is stretched and I need somebody to come assist me, how do I sit down and do I sit down and start thinking, do I want someone's behaviors like me, or how do I define behavior?
Well, I think that business owners need help. I don't know that we're going to get it done in this radio program, but I think that they need to learn the process by which to solve that equation so that at the end of it, they have a benchmark, they have a profile of the behavior they want in that job. But let me talk about the next part of this program that I devised, because it really has to do with how do you see the behavior before you hire them? Because
right, and let's talk about that.
And the other issue, you were talking about going back to the recession. I remember working with the woman who owns the coaching school I graduated from. I mean, she was amazing. Everybody loved her. She was an amazing teacher. But when I walked in her office and saw the mountain of paper, and I saw the binders being put together like 2 minutes before the students were showing up, and there were typos everywhere, and it was just a mess behind the scenes, I asked her, why didn't she hire somebody? And she said, well, I have an assistant. She's just no good at this, so I have to redo all the work. And I said, well, that's crazy, right? I mean, obviously this woman has absolute wrong behavior style to be an assistant, right, an executive assistant, but her answer to the question was, I don't have time. I don't have time to do the work and hire and train and do all this stuff. So that's when I started unpacking it. It's not just to see their behavior. She had the wrong person, and she had no time. And let's not forget how expensive our employees are. So here's a stat for you. The U.S. Department of Labor says it costs a third of a hire's annual salary to replace them.
That's
so
interesting.
It's expensive, it's time-consuming, and we don't get a predictable result. So I just stood in her office and went, okay, there's got to be a better way. So what do we do right now? And you started talking about this a minute ago. Here's our system. We put out an advertisement. We collect a lot of resumes, which are supposed to be a work history. We read them all. And honestly, the only thing we glean from the resume is how well somebody writes a resume.
Exactly.
Which may be relevant to the behavior we need in the job, but I don't know that. And if we wanted to check that not only did they do what they said they had done, but they were any good at it, we can check references, but we're all hogtied on what we can say about in reference checks. So that's not really that efficient. When we start calling people on the phone, massive waste of time. Then the interview. You were talking about the interview. I hate interviews. I absolutely hate interviews. And I know there's a lot of experts out there talking about, well, all you got to do is learn to be a better interviewer. And I don't know anybody, well, I do know some people who like interviews, but not many. I mean, you don't like interviews.
It's just a, they're there to wow you and you're there to trip them up as the interviewer. And I don't necessarily know what you get out of it.
Uncomfortable conversations for everybody.
Right.
So I
would
want
agree
to do
that.
most of the work before you get to the interview so that you're not on a speed date. I call them speed dates. Uncomfortable speed dates, by the way. And all you learn from an interview is how well somebody interviews, which might be relevant to the job you have behaviorally or it might not be. In the end, all we do is go through all of that labor and make a gut instinct, cross our fingers, that we did a good job. So how about we do something different? And this is what I came up with. I simply automated a screening process so that I could see people, what they do. I could see what they do, right? And I could design that based on what behavior we're looking for in the profile that we designed going into it. So it's just, really it's 4 parts, right? From the ad, you go to a web page. It only takes 2 email addresses, 2 web pages, a Google Doc, and a Word doc. I wanted to make it simple. I wanted to make it simple for employers. I wanted to make it simple for candidates and applicants coming in. The interesting thing that's happened, and I've done, I think I've hired 50 people now using this process, using all ubiquitous tools, all the stuff we already have, automating the screening process, 3 simple steps. Click here, go there, right here. It's a little survey in a Google Doc, and it's a little skills quiz, which is don't tell me what you know, or don't tell me you know it, show me you know it. Right? Simple skills quiz. 80, right around, there's some .29s in there, but 80% statistically across every type of job, from professional to entry level, that I've been a part of, will not screen. They will not screen.
So before we, go further into it, so what are you devising the screen on behalf of your client, or is, the person writing a job description and getting it to you?
What happened to me when I started practicing this is I got very excited, because at the end of the screening process, I'd have 20% of the people that were worth paying attention to. We toss out a few of those. And then the last step, which I'll go into if we have time, a little more detail, is we actually give them an assessment that double checks our instincts to see if their behavior is similar to the profile we created. But what I found is I was waving my arms in the air and go, hey, everybody I know, here's a great way to do this. This is working. This is really working. I'll show you how to do it. I got very excited. 100% of the people that I have talked to want me to do it for them. They said, wow, I totally get it. This is way better than anything I'm doing, but I still don't have time. So would you do it? And so I've gotten in the habit of setting up the program, and they can use it for the rest of their life from there. I do the first hire with it. If they want me to do more hires with it, I will. And if they want to take it over themselves, they can. I'll teach them, because it's not. I don't want anybody to be beholden to the system. It's theirs. But it really, really works. And it even worked for Honey, because she was one of the first people I practiced on. I was like, let's get you somebody. And we screened out the right behavior.
And I want to drill down a little bit deeper on that. We're going to do that in just a moment. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz program on Voice America Business.
Up-to-date business and financial news. Call now and get the financial information you need. 866-472-5790. 866-472-5790. The experts are here. Voice America Business Network.
ERISA 408B2, fiduciary standards, safe harbor, fidelity bonds, record keepers, discrimination testing. I am so confused.
Does your 401k plan have more questions than answers? Peter Weitz and his team of 401k experts have a solution. Their on-site service model distinguishes them from other service providers, and they are specialists in 401k costs, regulations, and compliance. If your 401k plan has more questions than answers, then contact Peter at 877-945-2888 or email him at peter@inblackandweitz.com.
Climbing Mount Everest is an amazing feat, and many have died trying to do so. However, more people have died descending Mount Everest than in reaching the summit. Part of the problem may be that people are so focused on reaching their objective that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will do or should be prepared for afterward. Similarly, people are so focused on saving for retirement and reaching retirement that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will encounter once they have actually retired. With 1 out of every 4 65-year-olds today living past the age of 90, you may be retired longer than you are actually working. Have you devised a plan, process, and discipline to ensure that you will not run out of money? If you are not sure what to do, then simply contact Peter Weitz and his retirement team at Fusion Analytics. We help manage human emotions using 3 proprietary investment techniques. Our job is to evaluate the forces that the typical investor can't see so that wealth is preserved and not lost. Find out more at inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. In Black and Weitz, we win by not losing.
What are your business goals? How do you plan to accomplish them? Your strategy for business growth matters, and the experienced corporate lawyers at Retzel will collaborate with you to develop and execute a customized plan designed to unlock value at your enterprise. Whether the growth you seek is domestic or international, organic, or driven by acquisitions. Our attorneys are here to propose innovative solutions and assist you every step of the way. For more information, visit us at www.ralaw.com.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to In Black and Weitz. To reach Peter Weitz or his guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to peter@inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hi, thanks. Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Peter Weitz. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio show. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Peter Weitz or on my blog at inblackandweitz.com. We'll be posting some statistics and some information from today's show. And you can also email me at peter@inblackandweitz.com if you have any questions. We are joined, as I mentioned earlier in the program, by Ruth Schwartz, who is a certified business coach, and she's explaining to us today about a methodology that she's been using to help businesses and business owners hire the right candidate. And I think, she summed it up in an earlier segment when she said that we hire people based on their expertise. We fire them based on their behavior. And I think we're going to focus more in this segment on how we identify that behavior and exactly how it is utilized to help screen for the right candidates. So prior to the break, she was just walking through its history of success. And Ruth, you did mention that you present this software tool that you've created, but it uses information that's already out there. Walk me through just how you would begin the process with a new client. I mean, what information do they give you in order for you to be able to put this whole tool together for them?
Usually people have a prior job description or some sort of advertising they've run in the past. If they don't, we'll create one together. I have pretty much been able to create a conversation that can be accomplished in an hour. We create the profile and the benchmark of the job, which really is a prioritization process. We talk it through. It's not easy. I just had a guy the other day go, "Wow, this is really hard. I never thought of these things before." And I said, "Well, this is what is going to create a better hire for you." So we have that conversation so that we really nail down the behavior that's most important. Then I collect anything that they do have that's specific to the job. Even if they have a job description or an ad they've used before, I'll rewrite it because I want to rewrite based on the behavior style they're trying to attract. Different behavior styles are going to react and be attracted to different types of language. So we make sure that we're using the right kind of language. Then I did not even create the platform. Google created the platform. I literally just sit down and create Google addresses. I create a couple autoresponders. We create a couple web pages. The employer usually works with me on what are the relevant skills questions, no more than 10, that they want to use as their screen. And that's it. They're done in an hour.
And so
I end up bringing them candidates back. That's it.
And where do you go out and look for the candidates, or are they using Monster? Or
one of the challenges that I have is that I'm not a recruiter. I'm not an HR professional. I'm not a headhunter. I don't charge as much money as any of them. I'm a business solution. That's how I see this. So I put it all in gear, and then I determine with the employer where we're most likely to find the people that are appropriate for their job. So I'm placing ads, and sometimes we're going out to their network. I've got one going right now that's on fire, and all we did was, instead of putting an ad out, we turned it into an email letter and sent it out to her list. And all her candidates are coming right from her own network.
And you mentioned earlier that you're given a job description sometimes by the employer, and then how does that really does it gel with this sort of behavioral change that you're looking at with jobs? I mean, is a job, because the job description, I'd imagine, is written specifically to talk about what skill set is necessary for the job, but how does that drive you to get the right candidate based on this behavioral pattern that you've identified?
Well, once I understand what the skills are and what the person will be doing, and we've developed the profile for the job, the behavioral profile for the job, I change the ad, I change the job description. If they're going to use a different document for their HR document internally, that's not about what I'm doing. But in terms of attracting the right person, job advertisements are all marketing copy anyway. So I turn it into marketing copy, and I'm changing the words. And there's a lot of people now talking about, if you're going to attract the right people to your company, you've got to talk about what's in it for them anyway. And that's the difference between marketing copy and a job description. What's in it for you?
Just go ahead. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
I'm listening to your question.
Yeah, I was thinking that sort of along those same lines, what types of questions are you really answering? Or what words are you putting into these, marketing ads for job applicants that would draw them in? Is it benefit related?
Okay, let me make an example. So I've made a lot of friends recently in the dry cleaning business. Ironically enough, I started hiring for a couple different dry cleaners. And they have a problem, all right? When I first met them, their problem is that they have these route drivers, right? These are guys who go out in trucks all day with bags of laundry. And they drive through quiet residential neighborhoods, and they drop off the laundry and they pick up the laundry, right? They really don't interact with anybody, right? You kind of got a Tom Hanks image here, sitting on the beach with a ball, And they had crazy turnover. So I get in there and I start the conversation to profile this guy, right? So the guy who's going to be successful doing this loves the freedom of doing it, right? He loves being in that truck alone all day by himself. However, here's the conundrum. The employers were asking these guys, and this is all over the industry from what I can tell, because they're telling me that. I mean, I haven't dealt with everybody in the industry, but they tell me. They're asking these guys, while they're out in these residential neighborhoods, to knock on doors and solicit business. And guess what? They don't do it. They just simply don't do it. So these guys, these employers are just going crazy because they're saying this is a part of your job, and these guys aren't doing it. Then they started hiring guys that would knock on the doors and solicit businesses, and they'd only last about 3 months, and they couldn't figure out why. Well, to me, it was obvious, right? These are two distinct behavior styles. One guy does not need to be around people all day. He sees being in that truck as freedom. But he doesn't want to talk to people. The other guy loves being around people, but after about 3 months of driving around alone all day, they're about to commit hara-kiri.
Right.
Right? So they had to make a decision, which is most important. Right? So when we decided that it was actually the delivery of the product that was really the most important in their job, then I start writing the copy to attract people, I'm trying to think, what words would I use? I would be talking about having a calm, peaceful environment where you would drive your own route every day. Right? Because the guy, it's in the DISC profile, it's a high S profile. They want to have a predictable route to do every day, and they want it to be very calming. They don't want it to change, and they don't necessarily want to bump into a lot of people.
And so now what happens then with the other requirement of the job of the knocking on the doors?
Well, if the business is big enough to employ a different person, they will employ a different person. And that ad is for a different profile. We say, hey, do you like going out and talking to people every day? You know, would you like to, interact and become an expert at our product? And, it depends. Do they have to close deals, or do they just go out and relationship build? You know, there's another problem in sales, right? This comes up for a lot of companies. I've walked into a lot of organizations, and they can't figure out why their sales are not effective. We need more business. So when we profile the jobs and the people who are in the jobs, they've got people who are really great at interacting with people and doing customer service. And because they love talking so much, they've put them into sales roles. But they're actually no good at closing. That's a different behavior style. Closers don't mind. They're ambitious. They're competitive. They like to win, and they're not afraid to ask for a sale. Some of the relationship builders will never ask for a sale because they fear rejection. Salespeople can't fear rejection.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so now, so all of a sudden, so now I'm guessing you're meeting with this dry cleaner, and what's their reaction? I mean, are their eyes wide open, going, "Wow, I didn't realize that I was, bringing in the wrong people"?
Yeah. I remember when one guy, he said, I can't believe it. After 3 months, I caught this guy across town off his route, standing on a corner smoking cigarettes. Like, what's up with that? I said, it's social time. The guy had to get out of his truck and talk to somebody. Now, I'm not saying people should be smoking cigarettes, but for those people who, the smokers who go out and hang out in the smoking area, it's social, right? So I'm like, you got the wrong guy in the truck. He's not an idiot. I mean, he's young and he might be a little bit of an idiot, but he's just needed his fix of people.
Yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And we're going to take a quick break, Ruth. When we get back, I'm going to pepper you with a couple of interesting questions on the notes I've been taking during the last couple segments.
Okay.
You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio program on Voice America Business.
Voice America Business Network, the bottom line in business.
Climbing Mount Everest is an amazing feat, and many have died trying to do so. However, more people have died descending Mount Everest than in reaching the summit. Part of the problem may be that people are so focused on reaching their objective that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will do or should be prepared for afterward. Similarly, people are so focused on saving for retirement and reaching retirement that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will encounter once they have actually retired. With 1 out of every 4 65-year-olds today living past the age of 90, you may be retired longer than you are actually working. Have you devised a plan, process, and discipline to ensure that you will not run out of money? If you are not sure what to do, then simply contact Peter Weitz and his retirement team at Fusion Analytics. We help manage human emotions using 3 proprietary investment techniques. Our job is to evaluate the forces that the typical investor can't see so that wealth is preserved and not lost. Find out more at inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. In Black and Weitz, we win by not losing.
What are your business goals? How do you plan to accomplish them? Your strategy for business growth matters, and the experienced corporate lawyers at Retzel will collaborate with you to develop and execute a customized plan designed to unlock value at your enterprise. Whether the growth you seek is domestic or international, organic or driven by acquisitions, our attorneys are here to propose innovative solutions and assist you every step of the way. For more information, visit us at www.ralaw.com.
ERISA 408B2, fiduciary standards, safe harbor, fidelity bonds, record keepers, discrimination testing. I am so confused.
Does your 401k plan have more questions than answers? Peter Weitz and his team of 401k experts have a solution. Their on-site service model distinguishes them from other service providers, and they are specialists in 401k costs, regulations, and compliance. If your 401k plan has more questions than answers, then contact Peter at 877-945-2888 or email him at peter@inblackandweitz.com.
The business community's first choice in Internet Talk Radio. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to In Black and Weitz. To reach Peter Weitz or his guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to peter@inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hi, thanks. Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Peter Weitz. For those of you that have been listening, it's been a pretty interesting conversation about a new theory on the practices of finding and hiring the right employees in your business. And we've been tutored today by Ruth Schwartz, who developed this idea and is a professional business coach and able to guide us entrepreneurs in that capacity. But prior to the break, Ruth was walking us through an example of an existing client that she has as a dry cleaner. And she's been identifying the behaviors of a certain job. My question to you, Ruth, is this. Are you always able to identify what the right behaviors are? What if you're off on what that behavior is? Are you going to end up getting the wrong person?
I suppose that could happen. If you haven't done the work of getting very clear about what's most important on the job, then you could get the wrong person. Yes.
And I suppose that's where your coaching comes in, because you're able to extract from that entrepreneur, that business owner, exactly what those critical requirements of the job are.
Yeah, and it's a series of questions. So after people learn it a few times, I mean, I've had people graduate where they've done it a few times with me, and okay, I get it. These are the questions I have to ask myself. Is this more important than that? Is that more important than this? I mean, there's a series of questions that get us to prioritize behavior along with skills, and they learn how to do it. The other place where it can go wrong, and I have seen it go wrong, is that people go, okay, I got it, great, but I don't do all the steps to screen anymore, right? They don't really follow the program, and so they could get a bad result. Or they fail to use the DISC assessment at the end. They're saying, I could tell who this person was, and I do this all the time. I'm like, I think this person, the way they answer their questions, I think I know their behavior style, but I know myself well enough to know, no, always check your instincts. Have them go through the assessment. So after they screen through, you talk, you have one conversation with them, maybe a pre-screen phone conversation. And this is only at most 20% of the people who even are interested in this job. Then you give them that assessment. If you fail to give them the assessment, then you're not sure you've got the right person, because it surprised me a couple times. I thought, I have this person nailed. I'm so good at this. I do it all day long. All I do is look at DISC assessments, and I get one back from somebody, and it's really different than I anticipated. That happens when people are looking for work, right? That's why we marry people and then wake up and go, who is this person? Because who they are in their interviews are not their true behavior style.
And are you have you done any statistical research on this, or have you found that by utilizing your program that employees tend to stay at companies longer because you've got the right behavioral pattern in the right job?
You know, I have started to draw those stats now because I've been testing for the last couple of years, but I don't have a stat for you today. There's so many different reasons why people stay or leave jobs, and so it's going to be a complicated process. And I'll get back to you though and let you know how long people are staying.
And are you? But you are finding, or at least I would imagine your clients are telling you that they seem to be getting the right fit for a candidate. Mostly,
yes. And my goal in working with clients is that unless they're going, Yahoo, I cannot wait to hire this person, then I don't want them to hire him. I want the employer to be as excited as the employee. I'm looking for that synergy. I want them to come into their interviews and go, oh, this isn't really an interview. This is a conversation. It's a comfortable conversation. We know enough about each other now. We can actually talk in a human way. 90% of the work has been done before you ever get to that interview stage. I've seen time after time after time after time, the reaction is, oh my gosh, this gal is so perfect. This guy is so perfect. And that's what I'm looking for before they hire. I do have to go back now and see what's happened to all my hires.
Yeah, because that would be pretty interesting to see how. The other question I had is that several months ago on this program, I had a recruiting firm on the program, and what we were talking about was that in the white collar, specifically the highly skilled technical area of the workforce, being IT, accounting, finance, that there was a very low rate of unemployment. Essentially, they were thinking probably in that 2% range. But then when you open up the spectrum to all jobs that are currently available, obviously you see the unemployment rates now approach, that double-digit number. And so my question is, does it matter in your program what sector we're looking at to identify a candidate? I mean, in tighter job markets, in IT or accounting, is this methodology almost better because you're able to really pinpoint the exact candidate you're looking for in a tight market?
I believe that's true. Okay, so tight market. I was hiring a software architect. I mean, these guys aren't even the code junkies. They're over them. They manage all the code, right? And there's not enough of them. As it turns out, what I learned is there's not enough of them. They're either working, they work for a lot of money, and people are on the search for these guys. That's the land of headhunters. When I got in there, yes, I mean, I eliminated a lot of guys that applied for that job based on behavior. They probably didn't actually have the skills, but the interesting story happened. We found a guy who was perfect. He had all the skills. He screened through. He did everything perfectly. I ran a disc on him. The disc came back with a what they call a flag, which means something's going on with this person. And we don't know it from the assessment tool. We just can say that there's something like really inconsistent in the way they answered the questions, and so we flag it. 2 weeks later, this guy was picked up for he was on the front page of the local paper where we were hiring because he had been doing burglaries all around town. He'd been going into people's businesses and stealing their business equipment. all I did was tell the employer, I don't know what's going on with him. We could have him redo the assessment, but there's a warning. Things like that come up.
And I got one last question for you before we wrap this up. It's not really a question, but if I'm thinking for my own selfish interest, the one behavioral thing that comes to mind constantly is accountability, and I'm wondering if that's something that crosses your path a lot.
It depends. Now, accountability is not necessarily a behavior style. It might be a character piece, but character is much bigger than behavior.
And I suppose I'm looking at it more along the lines of, someone that's sort of self-motivated that doesn't need to be told all day what to do for job tasks.
Exactly. So one of the things we're looking at when we're looking at behavior is whether somebody is supervised or unsupervised. Are they going to need a decision maker in their life next to them, or do they want to be the decision maker? That's a behavior style. Are you looking for somebody who is very accurate and detail-oriented, or is that less important than the way they interact with people? Right? You want somebody steady and methodical, or do you need somebody who moves quickly and more flexibly? Are they dealing with interruption, or are they dealing in a focused way in their work?
And that's, I guess what the crux of what, that's everything that I always look for. But Ruth, I apologize, we're out of time. I really appreciate you being on today's program. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you and hearing more about the success of your product. It sounds like it's awesome. You can be found, do you have a website?
Yes, sir. My company is High Performance Advocates, and the site, of course, is highperformanceadvocates.com. But there's also a site for failproofhiring.com, and you can find me either way.
Great.
If you want to learn more.
Yeah, thank you very much for being on the program. It's been a great show. Certainly, as always, very interesting and informative for me. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio program on Voice America Business. Make it a great week.
Thank you again for tuning in to In Black and Weitz. Please join your host, Peter Weitz, again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 7 a.m. Pacific Time for another edition of the program on the Voice America Business Channel. Have a safe week.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Business Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericabusiness.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by Voice America